What made you say, yep, I'm gonna die? My roommate Maddie came home one day and said, hey, did you hear about that crazy guy from the mental facility that just moved in next door? Apparently he murdered someone or something. I didn't believe her, but I honestly was paranoid going to sleep that night. There's no way he'd actually break into our house, right? However, the next morning I woke up and instantly heard someone knocking on our door. Maddie heard it too, and when we answered it, we saw a tall, scrawny man standing there. Hey, beautiful. I cut my hand. Can I follow you to your bathroom so I can put on a band-aid? We looked at his hands and they were perfectly fine. No cuts or anything. Maddie says, no, that's okay. He sighs and says, oh, well, can I measure something in your bedroom? We instantly shut the door and thankfully watched him walk away. We thought he'd probably just leave us alone, but the very next morning, I woke up to someone absolutely pounding on our front door again. I realized who it was, so I ran to Maddie's room and shook her awake, telling her the Band-Aid man was back. She groaned, but got up, and we both walked to the front door. We were tired of him waking us up, so Maddie decided to open it just a crack to see what he wanted. But the second that door moved an inch, he threw his whole body against it, trying to force it open. We both screamed, but thankfully the chain was still attached. He peeked in through the gap, smiling. He says, hey girls, can I use your bathroom? We both slammed our weight against the door and forced it shut. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely turn the deadbolt, but this time he didn't leave. He was just standing there, so I instantly grabbed my phone to call the police. He was just standing there when they showed up and made him leave. We thought they'd for sure arrest him because he just tried to break into our house, but the officer told us they couldn't arrest him unless he committed an actual crime. We were both mad, but that night we made sure all of our doors were locked before we went to sleep. But this time I didn't wake up to knocking. It was still dark outside and it sounded like someone was shaking off a rug or something. Why would Maddie be doing that at 4 a.m.? I sat up to listen closer, but when I walked out of my room, my heart absolutely dropped through the floor. I saw our front door was shaking and I realized there was no rug. Through the window, I saw the Band-Aid man was back and was now throwing all of his weight at our front door trying to break it down. I instantly ran over to Maddie's room, shaking her awake, yelling at her to call the police. We could hear the front door starting to break and knew it wasn't going to be long until he broke the whole thing down. Please, someone is breaking into our house. But then, out of nowhere, the sound stopped. We thought he was gone, but when I looked out the window, I saw him holding something. He raised it above his head, and just as he swung, I realized he was holding an axe. Bang. We heard the axe slamming against the front door, and Maddie screamed at them to hurry, because there was now a hole in the middle of it. He kept swinging. Bang, bang, bang. And we backed into the corner of the living room, holding on to each other, watching as our only barrier between us and this man was being destroyed piece by piece. The door gave one final crack, and the whole thing came off the hinges. Maddie yelled, "Get away!" as he stepped through the frame, axe in hand, and looked right at us. Help! Someone help! And as soon as she yelled that, he ran straight at Maddie. She screamed. I screamed. He raised the axe over his head, and I knew this was it. This was the moment. Then I heard the loudest pop I've ever heard in my life. A loud bang echoed outside, and we saw the Band-Aid man suddenly drop to the ground. The police were out there, and they fired straight through the hole in our front door. They had barely got there in time, but as they carried him out to the ambulance, Maddie and I knew one thing for certain. We were moving the F out of this house.